Hello my friends, on your screens you may see the operation done by Ukrainian drone operators from Magyar Birds unit. They are conducting the strike on some of the local thermal power plants in occupied region of Donetsk. This is Zuyevska TETS that was kaboomed. Yeah, as you might see, the kaboom definitely happened there. There is another drone strike in the same facility. Locals also shared their videos from the place that happened the last night. Again, it's not the nuclear facility. This tower is the cooling tower for the thermal power plant. That's it. And this is Starobishevska TES, so one more, kind of the big one in Donetsk Oblast. So the vast part of Donetsk Oblast is now mainly without electricity. Well, maybe Russians could restore the operation, but Russians also need electricity for their military. And basically the infrastructure of the occupied Donetsk Oblast is mainly working for the Russian military. About locals, yes, unfortunately they also suffer without electricity, without heat, but that's the war. Russia hits Ukrainian infrastructure, Ukraine hits the infrastructure which is used by Russians. And yeah, Russia will have to spend lots of the time to restore those two thermal power plants. They're not far away from the Ukrainian controlled territory, so Ukraine may perform those strikes almost every night. Our OSINT analytics geolocated the area. Definitely everything is confirmed. Multiple of the drones were used. The video which I showed you was shared by Magyar himself. And you know, this afternoon something outstanding happened in Voronezh, Russian Federation. We have this video from the eyewitness with eyelashes.
Пизда! Охуеть! Блядь! Ой, блядь!
Yeah, the ground kabooms were not reported. Everything happened in the skies. Probably Ukrainian missiles were intercepted, but what about those missiles? It's been reported by the Russian channels affiliated with Russian military that Ukraine, for the first time in this war, used ballistic missiles. They still cannot say the exact number. It could be up to 6 of the missiles, as Russians report. For example, fighter bomber who is affiliated with the Russian Air Force, he said that it could be Grom 2. He said that there were 5 up to 6 missiles which were used for the first time since the beginning of SMO. Special military operation, but he also stated that the Russian air defense shut down all of the missiles, and judging on eyewitnesses, videos published in the internet, I didn't see the ground kaboom, so maybe Russian S-400 or S-300 definitely worked well in where it happened. Voronezh, yeah. I just wonder about what kind of important Russian facilities out there in Voronezh for Ukraine to use that much of the ballistic missiles, and I wonder what kind of those definitely were. Grom 2? I don't think so. Well, there is the probability for it, but we'll see, because the Firepoint company, it was also working on producing ballistic missiles, and maybe it's some sort of the test, real-life test of those missiles. I'll try to find more information about this case and update you maybe in coming videos. Meanwhile, in Russian Omsk, it's crazy what is happening. Locals reported about the big blast. This is the main gas pipeline. Well, for locals, it's more warm than, especially for those who live in the nearby buildings. And it could be, like this case could be connected to just some of the accident, or it could be a sabotage mission organized by Ukrainian military intelligence. Usually it's done via GUR. Here we have the satellite image from the Saratov oil storage. There is the refinery facility that was hit 3 days ago, and 2 days ago at night the oil storage was also damaged. Still the fire there continues. Saratov is roughly 400 kilometers away from Ukraine, and there is the Russian Engels base. Also, we have the information that in Engels, Russia is preparing bombers for the major strike on Ukraine. So for Ukraine, it's important to continue to disturb Russian military, Russian infrastructure, Russian economy in general. Meanwhile, yesterday Russians launched a massive attack on Dnipro city in Ukraine, and as you may see, it's not the thermal power plant, it's not the military center or something, it's just a residential building that was hit by the drone. It doesn't mean that Russians hit just civilian infrastructure, they also aim for military and for logistics, but at the same time they do not hesitate to hit random buildings as well, because their policy is to apply terror on Ukraine, and that doesn't work. That makes the Ukrainians even more angry. Angry not on own government, but on Russians one, of course. All right, now we have some of the good news coming from China. China slows Russian seaborne oil imports on sanctions. Here, all of that, I guess, is the Russian oil firms that continue to sell the oil to China. And in November, we see this huge decline. According to analytics, the next year, in January, February, just 1/3 of the Russian oil will be purchased by China, which is 75% less than in previous months. And that's the huge damage for the Russian economy. I wonder why those sanctions were not applied on February 24th, 2022, and just Donny implemented those with some of the exceptions for his close friends like Orban, but still they work, you see, at least for some time. And Donny recently said that they're gonna maybe apply more sanctions on Russia or secondary tariffs. You may say sanctions also on the countries that continue to trade with Russia. Yeah, I'm not saying that Donny is a great guy, the best American president. No, he applied sanctions just for, I think, his own profit, to sell American oil elsewhere, to cut Russian supplies because of that reason. He doesn't care about Ukraine at all, and he would still like to have a deal with Russia. If Putin agrees on ceasefire, those sanctions absolutely will be lifted, but Putin will not agree. Also, like a variant, Donald Trump was offended by Putin personally because Putin played him multiple of the times, and Donny understood it, and he disliked the situation. He wants some sort of the revenge. But after all, without new sanctions implemented, the current ones will be circumnavigated by Russia. That is what happened in 2022. Then the Russian oil export was restored in 2023 with the boost of the shadow fleet. Here, it could be a similar situation. More about sanctions, I guess we have it from Reuters. Trump would back Russia's sanctions, but if he retains final authority, White House officials say. So basically, the project that is proposed in Senate, it should include the final authority for Trump to apply sanctions on Russia or to remove those. Yeah, obviously for us it's not good because at any moment he potentially may remove those sanctions. So yeah, it's not. But after all, it's better than nothing. We'll see. We'll see. All right, about the sabotage that happened in Poland, it was conducted by Ukrainians, yeah, those traitors who left Ukraine for Belarus, who were working for the Belarus KGB, they went to Poland using Ukrainian passports, and they put the TNT on the rails and then exited back to Belarus. And just to recall, yesterday Poland officially opened the border with Belarus. The same day there was this kaboom. Well, luckily no one was hurt, but the damage was done to the railways. Yes, even among Ukrainians, there could be some of the pro-Russian people or people who think that they are Russians, even brainwashed people. So for sure, intelligence services should be involved in investigation and to scrutinize individuals, also those who are coming, unfortunately, from Ukraine. And I don't think it's a good idea for Poland, after all, to open the border with Belarus. Well, I understand why they've done it, just for China goods to go into Europe. Not just using the railroads, but also trucks. This is the main supply line for China goods to go to Europe. If we speak about the ground route, it goes to Belarus, then to Poland. So again, we see that attention for the country's security is lower than attention for income. Money. That is only matters. Alright, breaking news right now while I'm filming this video. Russians report about the closure of their airfields, airports in Moscow. The drone warning was announced. We'll see. Maybe with the next update I'm gonna tell you what happened there. But the air defense of Moscow is the strongest one from entire Russia. And one more breaking information, it seems like Russia lost Sukhoi Su-35, maybe because of the friendly fire, as initial reports say, over Crimea, but I cannot state it by 100%. I'm gonna monitor the information coming also from the Russian channels. Oh, NATO plans to drastically cut the required deployment time for the troops in Eastern Europe from 45 days to just 3-5 days, according to Financial Times report. So yeah, currently 45 days is the reaction time. Oh my god. For 45 days Russia can occupy lots of the territories of the Baltic states, and yeah, it's terrible reaction. I would say even 5 days is kind of long time, 3-5 days. Yeah, if Russia attacks Suwalki corridor with drones, with Shahids paralyzing logistics, and this is outstandingly bad. Yeah, luckily NATO understands that they are working to improve, but how much time may take to apply new logistic lines and new bases somewhere close to the Eastern Europe. The main obstacles to improve is the outdated infrastructure and bureaucracy. Of course, to coordinate everything with all of those NATO countries without the common army, because there is absence of the common army in Europe. Every country has its own commanders, generals, admirals, ranks, and to coordinate everything like this responsive action is very hard in a short time period. I think that Europe should come out with a joint army, because guys like Orban, they may slow down absolutely everything. So now with this infrastructure, just transporting equipment may take 45 days, not even speaking about deploying it. Bridges and roads are often unable to support the weight of the modern tanks. And also they say that there is the problem with the railway connection, especially in the Baltic states. The railroads are overloaded, and to make them working for military, it's a big headache. So the issue is known. It is announced for the world that NATO is going to improve, but Putin will not wait for NATO to improve. There are big risks for the NATO countries, especially for Baltic states. And we see it, everyone speaks about the war, which is, I would say, mostly inevitable. Just a matter of time, guys, just a matter of time. And now the mystery with the ballistic missiles over Voronezh was uncovered. Ukrainian General Command reported about the use of ATACMS. Well, I haven't seen the ground explosions there, so maybe Russians, after all, intercepted those missiles. For now, it's definitely hard to say, but the kabooms were recorded in the air, in the skies, not on the ground, by eyewitnesses. Is it possible to intercept ATACMS? Yes, it is possible for S-400 and S-300. Oh, interesting. There will be the meeting between Zelensky and Vitkov in Istanbul. It's gonna happen this week, maybe even tomorrow. The Russian delegation says that they will not be presented, and already there are some of the conspiracy theories and rumors in internet that this meeting is done to press Zelensky personally. We know from Zelensky himself that Vitkov pressed him during the latest meeting in Oval Office for Ukraine to give up own territories voluntarily. That is what Putin wants, Donbass, yeah? Zelensky obviously refused to do so, and what happened the next months? A huge scandal around Zelensky's circle that really happened. I mean, this corruption, but it was unveiled by NABU. NABU is funded by our Western allies. NABU is working together with FBI. They have their separate room cabinet in NABU office. And we know that American money are being included, those packages of the money with the names of American cities. So for sure that cash was sent to Ukrainian banks or some other organizations, but not to those officials. Mindich and his corrupt syndicate just stole that American money. So with that scandal, Vitkov may blackmail Zelensky once again. He might say, okay, now we uncover 1% of the entire investigation that was done around your circle, but you know that you could be also out there together with your close ally and friend Andriy Yermak. So you should agree with Trump's and Putin's and Vitkov's demands to leave Donbass. Just leave it for Putin, and we're not gonna go deep into this investigation. We're gonna tell NABU, to slow down. After all, FBI is involved. We can manage this investigation. Yes, for now it is some sort of the conspiracy theory, but it could be based on some of the facts that we already know. The fact that Zelensky wanted to close NABU after he understood that they're digging under his circle, it was definitely a fact. So Zelensky, as for me, he knew what was happening out there. Plus, also we know that Donald Trump supports Putin's idea to give up territories for Russia, Donbass, Donetsk Oblast, voluntarily, and after that Putin promises to freeze the war, to stop it, at least for some time, and for Donald Trump it would be enough to announce that he is this peacemaker who stopped the war in Ukraine, and for that they are now they're now pushing Zelensky. For Zelensky, the situation is bad from any sort of the perspective. But again, guys, we don't know what is happening out there. It's just of those conspiracy theories, which I wanted to shout out because it looks more or less could be real, yeah, this one, but we'll see. Officially, they are meeting for some sort of the resuming peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul. Russian side says that this meeting is for nothing because they're not taking part in it and not planning to take part. However, we also know that Americans are now working with the Russians to release some of the prisoners of war, and there will be major exchange, I hope, in the future between Ukrainian and Russian side for that exchange. Well, at least they're speaking about those humanitarian initiatives, but the personal meeting between Witkoff and Zelensky, it's kind of interesting. We'll see what might happen after. And now in Ukraine, there is the disturbance in Verkhovna Rada, so in parliament. Many of the members of the parliament, especially those who are not in Zelensky's party, that has the mono majority in the parliament, so they insist on dismissing the current government, excluding Zelensky. Zelensky could be president, but the government should be resigned, and new government members, ministers, should be elected by Verkhovna Rada, so by the parliament itself, and appointed not by president but by parliament. And actually it's like it should work from the very beginning, but ministers were appointed by Zelensky, not by parliament, unfortunately. So the operation of the Verkhovna Rada parliament is basically disturbed, blocked by those so-called oppositioners to Zelensky's party. So this corruption scandal definitely undermines Zelensky's power, and already something is happening there. NABU, just remind you, NABU has just started to release those files, audio recordings and so on, so potentially it could lead to the big political bombshell that could touch entire Ukraine and personally Zelensky. My friends, there are some of the news coming from the front lines, but I want to film it in separate video. Stand by for that update coming in a few hours, and thank you so much for supporting my job on Patreon and also membership of the channel. For Patreon, please check out my link in the video description just below or in a pinned comment. For membership, just press the join button somewhere over here, and thank you so much for that. If you don't have the opportunity to support me in that way, just press like to this video and subscribe for the channel. By doing it, you also help me a lot. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.